Welcome to the Hunters Hub, a Monster Hunter community podcast for hunters by hunters. Hello, hunters, and welcome to the Hunters Hub, Episode 3. Today, it's just Wrath of Gog and myself again. We tried to get some guests to talk about Generation 2, but things got complicated, schedules got messed up, and here we are. So, howdy, Gog, how's it going?
I'm doing great.
So today we wanted to talk about just sort of a retrospective on a few monsters that maybe we won't see in World coming up. And those two monsters are going to be the Yian Kut-Ku and, of course, anything associated with the Yian Kut-Ku as far as like subspecies and that kind of thing. And then also Astalos. So we're going to talk about some newer and older monsters and sort of go into a lot of in-depth on what they were and that kind of thing. So people who are joining in Monster Hunter World may have heard these monsters and, make a joke about them or something. And, maybe they have a good idea of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gog, how do you feel about the Yian Kut-Ku?
Well,
so, he came way before your time, so I want to know how you feel about
Monster
him.
Hunter 1, correct?
Yes.
And he was a demon at first.
What do you mean by a demon?
I heard he was terrible in MH1. He was just really hard to fight.
He's unpredictable for sure.
Really. And obviously he has horrible hitboxes and everything else that most of them had. So that'd be kind of scary with him and all of his instant movement.
Yeah. I still very much disagree with the idea of instant movement.
Okay. Yeah, because you got the whole thing about, he's turning this way. That means he's doing this. I haven't thought about that before.
Yeah.
He just moves fast for me, and I'm like, holy crap.
He did have the most ridiculous charge. And you still see it in Generations, that thing where he's just got his head arched
back
up.
and forth, yeah.
Yeah, and he's sort of he just runs like a chicken.
Yeah.
And so he gets the aptly named Chicken Wyvern. Although a lot of people called Rathalos Chicken Wyvern also, because Rathalos had a tendency to flee very often. When a monster leaves the fight. Or Rathalos would do it I don't know, in half the time and twice as often. It was just ridiculous. In Monster Hunter 1, that is. So, for me, the Yian Kut-Ku is actually the monster that made me fall in love with the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned a couple times, I did my first quest and I was hooked. And it was a Yian Kut-Ku. I ran into Area 2 of the original jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea what the maps were or that kind of stuff. So I was literally just looking around on the map. I was like, oh, okay, this is a lot of trees and stuff. I wonder, I can walk through most of them. It was just, sort of exploring. It was literally my first time playing. And I was online with two friends, and they were like, yeah, let's hunt a Kut-Ku. It'll be easy for him. Let's do it. And I see in the chat, watch out, with a bunch of exclamation marks. It does a little blip with the chat user.
Yeah, because they're sitting with their keyboards on their lap, trying to communicate.
Yep. And then I'm like, huh? And I turn my camera, and then the thing is 3 inches from me, and it's basically at the end of a charge where it's tripping. So I thought it was lunging at me, and it's the first time I've ever seen Kut-Ku or anything.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, and he bowls into me, aside from the opening cutscene and that kind of stuff. But yeah, he bowls into me and knocks me out of the area, and I roll across the area. I zone into Area 3 or whichever one. It was basically alongside the river. And I was like, what was that? That was awesome.
That's awesome.
And so I was just like, it's kind of funny because, like, when you get zoned, it doesn't matter how you get zoned. You just appear standing in the next area, too. And I was just, like, standing at the end of the log. I was like, okay, that was also weird. So I ran back in, and I literally had the hunter's... Is it called the hunter's knife? The original sword and shield.
I think so.
Because in the original games, they also didn't give you all the weapons. It was literally just you started with a sword and shield. And it was like a really bad one that
sucks.
I'm not even sure had yellow sharpness. It may have had yellow, but it went to orange really quick. It was not good. So it was kind of a big deal to get like a decent chunk of yellow in the beginning. And people are like,
you only went to
like
green
a
in
decent
that game,
chunk
so
of
I guess
green.
there would be more of a progression to get there.
Yeah. The best things had a ton of green, and that was it. So we just, like, my friends and I, they mostly did all the work. I bounced off and used a potion here and there, and I had to learn how to use a potion. It was a pretty memorable experience for me. So the Kut-Ku has always had like a special place in my heart, and I suspect that a lot of people's like first big hunts was the Kut-Ku.
Yeah.
That played in those older days.
Well, it's funny because like when you just said like the Kut-Ku is like the first one, I never really thought about it before, but I think in Monster Hunter Generations, like the first one you'd probably fight is the Macau, correct?
Yeah, the first boss monster.
Yeah, and especially in training you fight it, and I think that's really funny because when I first taught my girlfriend how to play, to no avail, unfortunately, but she tried to use, I think she tried using the dual blades, and she was trying to fight that thing, and it was very funny to watch, like, and think about how there are tons and tons of other people who are actively trying to get into this game and are going into the training and training and being like, oh my god, this is the first thing I've ever fought and I have no idea what I'm doing. And like seeing her messing around with potions and not knowing how to use potions and all that stuff, like I remember when I was like that and I was trying to learn how to play the game. It's just funny. Like everyone goes through that same process. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And to think that we're not that great of a player, yet we still know how to get into our potions, unlike most people that start out. Just because the game doesn't really teach you much.
No, it doesn't.
Especially in Generations. I don't think they teach you really anything.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of direction.
No.
In any of the games, really. You get walls of text, and if you're like me,
You
don't
read them.
That's true of any game. I get in trouble all the time for not reading quests on anything. And it's kind of funny, I consider myself more of a lore, and like I really enjoy like the sort of bigger world of games.
Oh, yeah.
You would think that reading all the text would attribute to that.
Nope.
And most of the time, yeah, that's where a lot of the reading comes in. It's like you delve deeper into the text, but not tutorials. Like, not things that are barring
Not
me
the
from
helpful
playing.
things.
Yeah, like that stuff, I am just very adverse to it. It takes me maybe 10 minutes to get used to a controls, and I just go. Like, I don't care. Whatever's being said. Distinctly, I remember playing the original Donkey Kong Country on Super Nintendo. I literally took like 5 minutes to learn the controls, and then I just went, and I was pretty decent at the game. Like, that's just how I play, and I did the same thing with Monster Hunter. I went in, so it wasn't my. I think they force you to go on a tutorial quest in the start of the number one. Before you can go online, I think. It's been a long time. I could be wrong. But I did do some stupid quest before I went on that Kut-Ku
hunt,
before I could join them. which is why I could only do one quest before I had to go to bed, because I think I was 15 or 16 at that point. I was 16. And I still had a bedtime at 16. So I had to go, and of course I mentioned before, I was leaving for vacation like the next morning, so I got that taste of the game, and I was gone for 2 weeks, thinking about that game the whole time. But I did that tutorial quest, and I learned a couple of the combos with the sword and shield, and I just sort of went with it and stopped paying attention to anything the game was saying about it. So I just clicked through everything, which is why I hate forced tutorials.
Yeah,
because it's like I don't care. I'll figure it out.
I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm happy that they're going to do something though in Monster Hunter, like the new Monster Hunter World though, because I think a lot of people do want some direction. I get that walls of text are annoying, but if they don't make it walls of text and they at least teach you something at all about the game, that's a good thing in my book.
Yeah. My ideal situation is that they have a pretty good tutorial that they sort of walk you through everything.
Like when they did the thing, like in the intro, where it was just showing him running up the back of Sorrow Magdor. I don't know what his name was. Big lava dude. Like they climbed, they moved around. He had to he evaded across the wall or something. He at least did something. He had to sprint. Mm-hmm. And obviously he'd probably land on the ground, not have a weapon to his name. He'd have to run through, probably stealthily, to the town, then get a weapon, and then you probably figure it out more from there, from the tutorials and stuff that you can choose to do. Because I doubt they're going to make you go through every single tutorial for every single weapon. That would be ridiculous, and they won't ever do that. They'll give you the option, and I think that's the biggest thing. And also, a lot of Monster Hunter games, they do say, are you an expert? Like, do you want tutorials? And you can say no, and then they'll bypass those. Besides the main ones.
That's what I was going to say, is I hope I can just skip some of that stuff. I just want to get into it. If I'm not mistaken, that comes out on Friday, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I could be wrong. It could be the standard Tuesday. Check now. The 26th is a Friday. So... we will be doing a podcast on the 27th, so that's not a lot of time to talk about it.
So that'll be cool, because they'll just be gushing about this, and I'll be sitting there going, oh, that's nice, you PS4 person. I'm going to be over here with my PC and waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Man. It sucks, man.
Back to Kut-Ku. To describe what he is he's one of the very first bird wyverns that you fight. And bird wyvern doesn't necessarily mean it looks like a bird. It's just sort of bird structured.
I mean, he looks like a bird. He's got a beak.
Yeah, he does have a beak, but I mean, he doesn't have feathers. He's very dinosaur looking. Mm-hmm. He's got a severe underbite.
Oh yeah,
looks like a caveman underbite, and so his beak is like. The bottom jaw of his beak is 3 times as big as his upper jaw. I
think the easiest way to explain it is that
like a pelican almost.
He looks like an armored bird without feathers. He's got just plating on him instead. He's still got those skinny proportions with big parts like a head and stuff, but it's very stick. It's just covered. Man, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's just got scales on him instead of feathers. He's kind of got the dragony thing, so he's got some little wings, little tiny wings. Got the little feet, little bird feet. He's got a big bird beak, and he has a fan on his head. And then he's got
frills, yeah.
A tiny little stubby tail. Yet somehow it reaches 500 feet whenever you're near it. Because he smacks you around somehow. I don't even know how he hits you with that thing, but when he does, he hits you way harder than anything else he does.
Yeah, I think another thing to note, in the latest iteration, you can only break his ears twice, I think.
Could you
Doesn't
not
have
do that
wing.
before?
No, it was once before,
Okay.
and maybe you can still break his beak, but I don't think you.
No. I think it's a one-time break on him now.
Okay, I could be wrong. I could be very
Yian
wrong about
Garuga is
that.
the one that has double breaks now.
Yes.
But that's another monster that we're not talking about today.
Yeah.
We might. It depends on if he's in world, though. Then we'll wait.
Yeah. We don't really know everything that's going to be in world,
Yeah.
but
Just to put a perspective for everyone, though, like we don't want to talk about Rathalos and Raytheon and Baroth because if they're in a world, they'll probably have new mechanics or just variations to what they do in some way that will be more interesting to discuss when we can actually compare them to the originals. So that's
very true.
Yeah. So that's just kind of the main reason we're doing that. But
Yep. Yeah, we want to avoid also. I assume that after World we'll also be doing the same discussion, except with the ones in World, since we now know which ones are there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to double up on that discussion, because then you just basically refer to episode X, and we're gonna.
Yeah, we're not sellouty like that. We're not gonna make you have to jump back and forth through them. Especially when they're an hour and a half long and you have to sort through it. That'd be ridiculous.
Sometimes 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when we have guests.
Yeah. So Kut-Ku is he's one of the most personalitied monsters, I would say, too. Just because he's so goofy. Not only does he look goofy, because he has a long neck and he's got that frill, so
yeah,
looking around, he almost looks like a submarine with like a periscope coming up. Sometimes with how tall his neck goes above his body, but it's also like the way he runs. Like they all had that sort of goofy, like looking stilted run to begin with in the original Monster Hunters, but Kut-Ku has sort of embraced it and
Definitely.
is a flailing chicken. The closest
I still can't
thing is
believe Rathalos did that.
He didn't flail like that, but he did stumble after every charge, like Kut-Ku.
So what Kut-Ku does is Kut-Ku doesn't really do that, but once he gets PO'd, that's when he actually starts to stumble, because he's running literally so fast and so hard he just can't control himself.
Right.
Which is what's so funny about him. He starts running crazy fast. He does like he like hunches back. This is kind of his like ultimate move. He hunches back, and he sits there for a second, and then he sprints forward, and he's squawking, and he's firing fireballs everywhere, and he's like just sprinting forward, and then he collapses on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah, he shoots fireballs left, right, and I think well, it's depending on how far he goes, but basically just alternates left and right. So it's not enough to just dodge out of the way. You got to dodge twice, because you may get hit with a fireball if you don't go to the right side.
You have to go directly. Like you kind of want to go around him at a diagonal. I think. Well,
when you break his ears, sure.
How do we want to go about talking about these monsters? Because do we want to start off with how we first met them, and then we can go into the details of what their mechanics are, how they move?
I don't really want to go in-depth mechanics. I just want to sort of do a high-level discussion about the monster. Because in-depth mechanics are really going to be useless to most people for the intent of what we're doing.
Yeah, because it's going to be more focused on just remembering them.
Right.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, we're not doing a tutorial on how to fight them.
Yeah. I
don't think anyone needs that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Especially for Kut-Ku.
Yeah, Kut-Ku, you can just kind of chop at him and he dies.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to mention mechanics if it's relevant to the discussion. I just don't think that's going to be a goal to just sort of, this is how you beat Kut-Ku. Like,
well, let's ask you, the viewer. Let's set a straw poll. Do you want to hear about the mechanics of a tiny flailing chicken, and how it moves. Go now and subscribe and like and other sell-outy things. Donate to my Patreon.
Geez.
Not even the sub one, like all three. Fortuan's Patreon, my Patreon, Michelle's Patreon. I don't even know who Michelle is. Just donate to her. Go on Patreon, look up Michelle, the first one there. Donate to it.
I was thinking Michelle Branch.
Definitely, yeah. Go find her. Donate to her. Does she have a Patreon?
I don't know. You said Michelle. And the only Michelle that I could think of that was like somewhat famous was Michelle Branch.
This is all staying in, by the way.
We'll see.
Gotta stay in. I went too far with this. Now it's got to be there forever, so I can regret it.
So, anyways, the Kut-Ku. So it definitely has this personality about it. And I think that it became a pseudo fan favorite for a lot of people. You see a lot of fan artwork about Kut-Ku.
I mean, you made one.
I did,
which is very cool.
It's very simple. It's just its head.
Yeah, but at least you can draw anything. Like at least you can draw something. When I draw, it's just like it's interpretive art. It's just kind of like a circle with some eyes, and it's like it could be a Kut-Ku, it could be a person, it could be some nostrils. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, but I'm not always too happy about what I do. I think eventually I'm going to be doing some artwork for the channel and for everything.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
I just have to get the time to do it.
Yeah, no sweat.
But all of that aside, it's a fan favorite by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this crazy roar that it's kind of like if you just sort of like digitized like a little kid roaring. I kind of feel like that's what it would sound like.
To me, it sounds like sounds like a crow, but then it's like sped up. Like they put like 3 crows together and then they just sped them up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll probably be hearing it right now, and if it sounds like 3 crows sped up, cool. If it doesn't, well, you know what it sounds like, so you don't need to compare it to anything.
That's very different interpretations, I feel.
Yeah, yours is like a child roaring, but digitized, and mine's 3 crows.
Yeah. Well, it kind of sounds like someone saying roar, doing that roar kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like roar, and then like it's digitized and distorted and whatever
it's
to make it sound like a monster.
It's very screechy.
I don't see the crow thing, but hey, more power to you.
Always.
So you got this really goofy fan-loved monster. And the crazy thing is that it was dropped in 3rd generation for favor of Kuripeko. Which is a strong monster. I never had a problem with Kuripeko, aside from the fact that I could no longer fight a Kut-Ku. So when it came back in 4U, I think a lot of people were really hyped about that. And it's kind of funny because it's not a challenging monster. Now, I'm sure it would be challenging if it was attack and defense and health were sort of on the same tier as like Gravius and that kind of stuff. Like if it was just a longer fight, I think it would just be just as challenging. So it's challenging in the mechanics of it pretty well, but because it's such a low tier monster as far as health and attack goes, it's defeated pretty easily.
Yeah, it's a very Kut-Ku is very annoying. He has a lot of moves that are just gonna get you, and you don't want him to, but he just kind of runs and like he turns really fast. He runs. He turns really fast, he runs. He turns really fast, and then he'll fake you out, and he'll spin and slap you with his tail. He'll just stop.
Mm.
He'll be in the middle of his giant run. He'll just stop and swing his tail, which is really annoying. But it's made to deter you when you try to run around him when he's sprinting at you. And the other thing is, because he's just so small, when you're trying to attack him, it's really hard to not be in a position that you'll get slapped around by him.
Mm-hmm.
And
or by teammates.
Oh yeah, you'll smack your teammates around definitely because you have like 2 feet of space on him to hit.
Yeah,
or
you
have 4
really
people.
have to. Yeah, if you've got 4 people, I mean, you really just have to have someone at the head, someone behind, and
Mm-hmm.
person on. I mean, you basically just have to make a
Yeah, and the first thing
plus
you have to
sign
do is
around
actually
him.
get to those positions when he stops for half a second.
Right. Yeah,
um,
there was a lot of upswings and
definitely.
knockaways and stuff when I fought him with friends back in the day.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. I didn't actually explain my first time meeting him because I actually met
Oh
him
yeah,
after I didn't see him for a long time from when I started playing because I played through Try and I played through Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and then I got to 4U and that's when I
yeah.
saw him. Which was a very interesting experience. I was trying to use the Charge Blade and I went out and I was like, I should be fighting these little small easy monsters so I can learn how to use my crappy weapons that I don't know what I'm doing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran up and I was using I think that it was just the original Charge Blade. It wasn't anything cool or special. So I had impact. So I was focused on his head. And the
Yeah,
problem
which is a
with
good idea.
yeah, which is cool because you can knock him out with a weapon that does cutting damage, which is something really interesting to me. And
Yeah.
I moved in and I didn't really know how to use the weapon, but I knew how to charge it. I didn't know how to get the red shield. I just knew how to charge it and use the X for
Yeah.
the impact attacks. Um, and I remember trying to hit his head, and because he was so small, I would always hit his wings or his legs. And even when he was knocked down and I finally hit him in the face, it would end up being that I would do the double swing. I'd move forward a little bit, and then when I went back into the super, I would slap him on the wings. And again, most of the time, I wouldn't even hit him on the wings. I'd probably just hit the ground next to him because I didn't know what I was doing. But it was such a hard thing to do, especially when he was actually actively running around. Um, it was just me chasing after him and rolling around because I didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
to do because I was so slow with the axe. And when I tried to use the sword, it was just kind of me using the normal X attacks. I didn't learn about how to use the charge, like the A charge attack, until I watched someone playing For You. I watched Kanta speedrunning. That was it.
Okay.
Never had ever watched a speedrunner before until then. And he was fighting Teostra. And he runs up and he's going shing and he goes and he does a little double swing. And I was like, what is he doing? It's so cool. He looks so strong. He's like smacking at it because he does like a because when you do the charge and you swing with it, it's enough anticipation that it looks really devastating. And for you, it was a really
Mm-hmm.
strong move. So kind of trying to watch a guy do like using the charge blade because I don't know how to do it, and then seeing him do that like blew my mind. Um, but yeah, like I did not know how to use the charge blade at all when I started out. So me trying to fight a Kut-Ku, which is fast and running around, it was horrible. Like I ended up having to use a longsword to kill him because I didn't know what I was doing. Um,
Hmm.
I think he might have carded me just because he runs back and forth so fast I couldn't like react, which is disappointing because I made it to G rank. Well, no, in 3U I think I made it to like Bracky before because I went back and finished G like I got through G rank much later, but I was in high rank and I knew what I was doing and I got destroyed by a small tiny chicken thing. It's just disappointing, very disappointing.
Yeah. I can understand that. It's always disappointing to get your first like legit, I would say, cart.
Hmm.
Sometimes you just get carted because you're not paying attention or that kind of thing. Whatever, right? It just happened. but like the first time you actually got bested.
Mhm.
Because you're like, okay, I did not understand what was going on there, or that
Yeah.
kind of thing, where it feels like your own fault. I think that recently happened with me in Double Cross,
Mhm.
where I legit just got carded, and it's kind of bad because I'm still in Low Star Villager when this happened.
Mhm.
I want to say that it was Rathian,
Okay.
and I've said before, Rathian tends to kill me. I don't know why. I think it's I'm very good at avoiding the tail flip most of the time, but sometimes it does hit me, and I think that's what gets me is the poison.
Okay. Yeah. She knocks you like if you're in low rank, she hits you hard enough that you'll sometimes die when you're trying to take an antidote or a potion, which is the most
Yeah,
frustrating thing in the world because you see your guy take it, see the little green thing go, "Ping," and then you go dead right before it actually
yeah.
activates.
Actually, it wasn't a Rathian. I remember now. It was a Gypserus.
Oh,
Um,
well, okay, well, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's literally Kut-Ku, but larger and 10 times more annoying. It does the exact same movements, except it uses poison and spits on you. It flashes, not like flashing like the good kind, I guess, to some people, but flashes like a light that makes you blind and you can't move and you're dazed. And then it has a
yep.
rubber tail, which it swings around at the slowest possible speed, yet it stretches out really far. It's really weird. And then it also has a rubber hide, which means that it doesn't get in a shock trap.
Hmm.
It's super annoying, and I hate it. And that's it.
I
Oh,
was gonna say it's the turkey to it's if Kut-Ku is a chicken,
he's the turkey,
Gypserus is a turkey.
just larger
You,
and louder.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, he got me with poison, and he wombo comboed me with
Hmm.
his pecs, which both
Hmm.
most bird wyverns have that attack where they just sort of do that rapid pecking.
Yeah, that's another thing
And
that he can come out of his charge with too. He
hmm
can run at you, and then he pecks a lot, and it's really annoying for people that use a shield because whenever you deflect something and you're not using Mega Dash Juice, it cuts down a considerable amount of your stamina. So they keep smacking it multiple times with those little pecks, then your stamina goes way down, and then once your stamina is at zero and they peck you, you basically get knocked off your feet.
yeah,
Um, and another thing that usually does that's kind of it's counter against some things is things like the charge blade. You can use a guard point to block attacks and move through the attack and attack. There's a lot of attacking in that
hmm
sense. I can explain that better. Basically, you do a certain move that puts your shield in front of you, so the monster will attack you, and then you can move through that. Like you basically brace yourself through that and continue into an attack on the monster itself. And this is really useful, except when something can attack you multiple times. Because you only deflect that one attack, and then you're into an attack mode where you don't really have that shield defense anymore. And then they'll just hit you
right.
and knock you out of it.
Yeah, Kut-Ku has a little bit of tricks up his sleeve where um, he sort of makes you have to play a little bit more defensively than you would like. So he sort of tricks some uh, mid tier hunters, because this thing's easy for him, but you'll get caught out on a few moves. I don't think they'll
Mm-hmm.
cart you, but you can get hit at
Definitely.
some points where you're just like underestimate your opponent there. I was gonna say Kut-Ku is again such a weak monster because of how low it is, basically in the tier rankings of just how much health and attack and defense it has. So much so that my brother in Freedom Unite, that's probably the most my brother played was in Freedom Unite.
Mm-hmm.
He would, just for fun, just to relax, he would sit on the couch with his PSP, and he would just kill Kut-Kus. He would just completely just speed run Kut-Kus. And he decided that he was going to kill over 1,000 Kut-Kus. He was going to put that on his hunter notes. I do not remember the exact number in which he stopped doing that.
But he got over 1,000.
Definitely. I think he was... I'm not for sure, but I think it was in the 2,300 range.
Oh my god.
He would just sit there, and he got it down to, I think his best time was 1:15. So he starts the quest, 1:15 past when quest cleared comes up.
That's crazy.
It includes finding the monster.
I can't. And that was high rank or low rank?
Low rank,
Okay.
I think. I don't think it was high rank. But he would just do it just for the fun of
he just
beating up
real fast.
a poor bird.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah, he likes Kut-Ku a lot.
That's why he wanted to kill it 2,300 times. That's what I do to everything I love. They don't like me that much.
Well, I mean, I like to kill a lot of Diablos because I think it's a fun fight. So,
oh yeah.
I think as a hunter, when you like something, you tend to hunt it more often.
Kut-Ku,
Maybe.
all it did was scare me because it was the only guild quest I could really get anything I wanted on. And obviously I play solo, so trying to go to, like, Frenzy Kut-Ku is kind of horrifying. Because he runs real freaking fast. Holy crap.
I can't remember finding a frenzied one in Gen.
It's horrifying. He also does a thing where he in his frenzy form, because you know how like frenzy and Apex they get like kind of weird different things to their moves, right?
Yeah.
Like Devil Joe gets the when he does his curb stomp, he makes like a fissure erupt from his foot out towards somebody, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Well, Kut-Ku did a thing where he would like kind of run towards you, but he wouldn't throw his fireballs, and then he would immediately turn and sprint at you with fireballs. So he'd like, when he was frenzied, he'd just go do, and then sprint at you really fast. It was horrifying because you dodge him once, and then he'd be turned at you already, and he'd just bowl over you. It was crazy.
One of the things that the newer generations added to him is the whole Khonshu diet.
Oh yeah.
He used to not really eat that much different than anything else. He used to just go to the sort of generic corpse plastered to the ground and eat that. He wasn't like Narga where he he eats Kelby or he has a favorite prey or that kind of thing. Like literally you just knew nothing about what he ate aside from he eats the texture that everyone else eats.
He ate Kut-Ku, which are the little roly-poly dudes. They're like little roly centipedes. Yeah,
so the Khonshu, the fact that he sort of slams his beak in the ground and eats them is kind of funny.
Rips them out.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that they sort of retroactively gave a reason for why he would just slam his beak into the ground that way. Because Gypsaris, when it does that sort of rapid pecking, doesn't actually hit the ground.
Yeah.
He just comes at you, peck, and then like he's actually attacking you. But Kut-Ku is always like hit the ground, and you're like, why? Why would you do that?
I think he only smacks his face into the ground when he's tired, because he slams his face literally into the ground, and then he rips up a Kut-Ku. No, he's not ripping up another one. He rips up a Khonshu, a little roly-poly dude, and then he like pops him back and somehow downs it down his skinny throat, which makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, it must unroll or something, or he just crushes it.
Yeah, just with his throat. He's got such strong throat muscles. He just...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Monster Hunter logic.
Yeah.
Gravity. Low gravity. That's why we can jump really high. Therefore, that's why we can put giant Khonshu things down our tiny throats. Done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in the older games he actually slammed his face in the ground. I think that was added.
Well, yeah, because exhaustion wasn't a thing until Try.
Right, yeah, exhaustion was not a thing until 3rd generation. So,
sorry.
It It was, yeah, there was only 2 modes. There was normal and then there was enraged. There wasn't anything like, oh, I'm tired, which is what we're describing as exhaustion. So Kut-Ku has had little update aside from this sort of I eat Khonshu's kind of thing. He's always kind of acted the same as far as like move sets and that kind of thing.
They did have a subspecies for him. I don't know if the first time we saw him was in 4U, but he was
the first time that you see the subspecies, as we mentioned in our Monster Hunter Gen 1 talk, is Monster Hunter G. So MHG, which is the very first expansion to the game.
Yep.
So the original Monster Hunter, which would have been our equivalent of Monster Hunter Freedom.
What was the new move that he gained back then?
To be honest, I don't really remember.
Okay, because in 4U, there's 2 things that he earns. He earns the ability to, when you... so something that Khonshu can do in G rank in the newer games is that he'll be running at you and then he can stick his face down to the ground and he'll pick up a Khonshu or 2 Khonshus and he'll throw them at you and they'll roll across the ground at you. So what the blue Khonshu does, or blue Kut-Ku, oh my goodness, it's a lot of Khonshu, Kut-Ku noises. Okay. He will grab them, and then he will do a kind of an arc with his head, and they'll spiral in towards you. Which is really scary because he then will charge at you. So you basically have to avoid a lot of different things at once and hope they don't hit you. Because just like the Khonshu will trip you when they hit you, which helps him set up to charge you. Another thing that he can do is he does this really weird thing
now,
Sorry?
I do want to clarify, we're talking about blue Kut-Ku
Yes.
when you say he.
Yes.
So I don't think that was mentioned in the start of it, but yeah.
Well, I said Yian Kut-Ku can do the thing where he throws them at you. I said blue Kut-Ku can make them
I know, but when you started this whole line of talk about the blue Kut-Ku, I don't think you introduced it as the blue Kut-Ku. You just said he. And I was like, oh, okay.
Normal Kut-Ku throws them straight. Blue Kut-Ku throws them in a little circle and tries to take you out at the same time.
Right.
Another thing that blue Kut-Ku can do. So Yian Kut-Ku can, when he goes up at an elevation, he'll fly towards you and then he'll land. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Something that blue Yian Kut-Ku can do is he will jump up in the air. I don't know how he leads into this, but he'll jump up in the air, do a little flip, fly at you, and then he'll do another flip, fly at you again. And it's really dumb looking because he moves at like 2 miles per hour. It's really easy to avoid. But it's just, it throws you off a little bit because of how slow it is. He's the whole time he's squawking. He's going, and he's just like really slow, flows in, kind of moves by you, kind of flies at a horizontal level. Then he spins up in the air, slowly flies at you again, whole time he's squawking. And then he hits the ground and he falls over. It's very, very weird.
I think what you're describing there may have been what they added
back
in the older games.
The old game? Okay. Because he didn't have the Khonshus before.
No, they didn't. But I think he did some sort of flying at you move, whereas normal Kut-Ku would only do that once in a while. He would sort of like fly really low and just sort of land and try to hit you. I think the blue Kut-Ku did that more often, and then also sort of did a sort of like a pivot to sort of come at you a second time. But this is a pretty vague memory of this, what I'm talking about. I could be entirely wrong. I just like blue Kut-Ku was not really. It never felt that different.
Yeah.
It felt like you needed to have a little bit more sharpness. You had a little bit of tougher hide, and that was it. Like it wasn't like to the caliber of another one that gets a blue variant, which is Rathalos. The Azure Rathalos felt like a total different monster sometimes. Just as far as difficulty goes, I don't think even he got changed up too much.
No, I think his main thing was that when he went up and he did the 3 fireballs, or he did his teleporting claw, he would float back down, and then he would kind of fly backwards really fast, and then come in with his claw again.
Mm-hmm.
So, for everyone who was kind of camped underneath him, waiting for him to come down so they could attack him, he wouldn't let you do that. He would then come out and try to attack you again, which was kind of a cool counter thing. I think he also had the in-air nuke, maybe? Or was that just Silver? Which is the biggest one. Okay. And then obviously Azure moved faster than Rathalos and stuff.
Yeah, so but that felt like a significant upgrade as far as difficulty and
that
kind of stuff.
That's the same with Brute Tigrex. His only real thing that he earned was the fact that he could do his crazy roar with the huge vortex of wind in front of him almost instantly all the time. Yet it felt extremely difficult because that was something you aren't used to. Especially when he'd run at you and fake you out and he'd step back and then he'd roar at you.
Right. But yeah, it was all of that to really say that Blue Kut-Ku doesn't really change up the fight that much. Or at all.
Not at all.
So, I mean, that's basically kind of everything I wanted to say on Kut-Ku. Do you have anything to add?
No, not really. I think we'll definitely have more to speak of about Astalos, which will be really interesting.
Right. So, the next monster we're going to talk about is Astalos. And Astalos is one of the Fated Four of the Monster Hunter generation. And Fated Four is in... there's this idea of a flagship monster in every game. The original one, it was Rathalos. The second one, it was Tigrex. And then the expansion was Narga. Tri was Lagiacrus. And then we moved to Brachydius for 3U. And
for
basically,
4. Sorry, we can end it there. That was enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't want to really get... I think it probably went into more than I wanted to. But the idea is there's basically... And they're typically on the box art. Now, it's not always true, and it's not going to be true for Monster Hunter World for anyone outside of Japan. But the flagship monster that they're calling is Nergigante, which is the sort of demon-horned looking elder dragon that's going to be in the game. The flagship Nergigante, while we're going to see Rathalos on our box art instead.
Mm-hmm.
The Fated Four were, in Generations, the 4 flagships. So they decided that there was going to be 4 flagships. Well, because basically there are 4 regions in the game. And those regions represent a majority of the previous Monster Hunter games, since Generations is meant to be a celebration of the series from that point back. Which is kind of interesting because it almost kind of preludes Monster Hunter World in a way. Because Monster Hunter World is changing things so much.
Definitely.
So it's like the final hurrah of the sort of old style Monster Hunter. And Astalos is one of those 4, and Astalos represents Kokoto, or the Gen 1 sort of era of monsters. Now, it is a new monster in the 4th gen, but it comes from the Forest and Hills. It has all the ties back to Kokoto Village and that kind of stuff, whereas like Gammoth is 2nd gen. Then you have Mitsune, which is the 3rd gen, and then sort of like 4th gen for the other one. But Glavness. But the Astalos is a flying wyvern, which was pretty much just bird wyverns and flying wyverns in the original Monster Hunter and Elder Dragons. So having a flying wyvern is appropriate, considering they were by far the most numerous. Mm-hmm. There hasn't really been a sort of traditional looking lightning element flying wyvern
Mhm.
for, and I say traditional looking as in Kazoo was the only one for a long time, and he's far from close to how other wyverns operate. But even Astalos operates very differently from other flying wyverns.
Mhm.
First of all, his tail is like a scissor. His tail has like these scissors on the end of it, these pinchers, and he tries to snap you with certain attacks. He actually uses his wings, which not a lot of other flying wyverns do. So he'll slam down and actually use his wings to sort of spread out his attack. But like most most electrical or lightning elemental monsters, he does sort of charge up that electricity.
Yeah.
Almost all of them, except for Kazoo, do it in some way.
Mhm.
So you get Zinogre with the Flurgerbergs that charge up. You get the Gaiacrus who charges his crystals on his back. And
Kazu,
all
when
this-
he rages, will have electricity on his face.
yeah, but I don't really know what that is. The electrical sac working. But
Oh yeah.
it kind of describes that Astalos sort of like vibrates his scales and causes friction, and
Mhm.
that would cause a charge, and that's kind of how he operates. He also has he's also got this weird horn that's basically an extension of his beak, so he kind of looks like an axe beak.
Mhm.
He's a very like most I'll say again, Kazoo excluded, lightning elemental creatures. It's like the sort of rock star of the element. Very spiky, very dangerous looking. Like imagine like rock stars with like spiky, outrageous hair and that kind of stuff. It's kind of how Astalos is. Even his music is even on par with Zinogre as far as like just intense rock.
Is it? Does he actually have? Yeah, he does have some electric guitar in there, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely does. Which is fine and all. I'm not sure he's a great representation of the first gen though. Like if they were to make a new monster to represent the first gen, aside from him being a flying wyvern, I don't really think that was the best one to go with. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, of the Fated Four, he's the one that fits the most, but like, he's a surprising design to represent the first generation.
Yeah. And Astalos is a monster that I like loved and hated all the time, just depending on the day. Like, some days I would be really excited to fight him because I know him in and out. It's really easy for me to fight him, honestly. But when I get into the fight and I'm just using a weapon that's not very mobile, it is very, very hard. He's like the one monster that I really like using aerial style on. Like, I really like aerial charge blade, and that's something that I love to use on him. It's like if I want to learn how to use aerial on a monster, like, or use the aerial of a weapon, I usually use him as a test dummy, just because it's really easy for me. Like when I tried aerial hammer after I did that horrible fight I told you about, I went and I fought him a few times, and it was still terrible, so I decided I wasn't going to use it. But it was still something that I could do and try. I also thought it was interesting because one of the things that one of the reasons that I don't like it sometimes is if I'm using a weapon it's weird. I can use a really slow weapon and a really fast weapon on him. But if it's anything in between, it's very hard. I can greatsword the crap out of him. Like, I greatsword Hyper Astalos all the time, and I just destroy him completely. I think I on the normal one, Verdant Hills, I'm pretty sure I got him under 10 minutes, the Hyper Astalos in high rank, which was really cool. And also was extremely difficult to get to that time. I think it was under one of the thresholds. It was either under 10 or under 15. I know that's a big space, but I felt good about it, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
And it felt right. Every time he would do certain moves, I knew to move around him to the spot, and I could hack at him with a greatsword. The mechanic of his charging and the fact that you can flinch him out of the charges that he does is really, really satisfying. Especially when you're using a crit draw set with greatsword, because you almost always knock him out the first hit. I think, like, my one problem with him, besides the fact that depending on the day I can't fight him, is the fact that I think his charging effect and the fact that you can flinch him out of it makes him very easy. It's very easy to break him out of those moves, especially when you have 4 people. The damage that you do is just ridiculous if you have the right armor. And when he goes into rage mode, he charges, I think, high rank and G rank, or no, just G rank, I think. He fully charges himself when he goes into rage mode. Like, immediately. He just kind of goes, whoosh, and then everything's charged up. And when you hit him in that mode, if you hit his wings, he falls over. If you hit him in the face, he flinches. If you hit him in the tail, he flinches. If you knock them out of the charge. And a lot of people, what they do right at the beginning of the fight is they put him in a shock trap. Something that this does is it charges up parts of his body, yet he sits in the shock trap. So you basically smack him all around while he's in the shock trap. Then he gets out of the shock trap. Oh, look, he's lit up. Oh, but it happens to be his wings. You then immediately knock him over, and then you continue to beat on him. And by the time that's over, someone has probably been able to mount him, because more often than not, a lot of people use aerial. Especially me. When I use Charge Blade, I could hit him a lot because I would basically, when he was in the shock trap, charge up my weapon. He would go in, I would get the files. He would go into his charge mode. His wings would be charged after he got out of the shock trap. And I would use the axe, and I'd upswing and, forward swing, like, vertically at his wings. He'd fall over. And then I would charge into red, get the rest of my files, and then hop on him and do that instant super over and over again on his face while getting the mount. Then after he fell out of the mount, you could KO him, and you could do that over and over, because even without the shock trap, he would still be charging himself back up, because now he was enraged, and you could just obliterate half of his health in that time, and then after that, it was just the case of fighting him. And this is a very long explanation, but that was like the core way that I was able to beat him so easily. And he's very simple because of the fact that when he charges up his wings, it just makes it easier. Even when he hits you with them, it knocks you really far away, which means you're out of his range, which is also really nice. They do give you a shock debuff, but it's fine. You usually don't get dazed that much by him unless you're fighting the Deviant Astalos and Double Cross, and then he will just trash you completely.
Right. So I haven't seen the Deviant Astalos. So what has changed with him?
So he's got a lot of different things. He has the G rank stuff, so he can do a thing where he will, you know how he does his forward slam? Well, then he hops back and he does another forward slam.
Okay.
Which is really annoying sometimes, because usually you can go under his, because he has very good hitboxes, so usually you can roll under him when he slams down like that. And you'll roll under him, but then he does it again, and you're usually right in that spot where he can hit you again, which is really annoying unless you have, evasion art. Which is not something we'll be seeing in World, so that'll be really interesting for me when I'm trying to click random buttons, hoping I can just magically evade everything. The Deviant Astalos has a lot of different things. He, basically, the coolest thing that he can do is he can make a giant lightsaber out of his forehead, and he slams it down, it's almost like a chainsaw. It's like into the ground. He can slash,
Jeez.
I want to say like 40 feet in front of him when he does it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's important to note that he can do that without Deviant. He can do
oh
that.
yeah,
The
but
original one can make
the
the
original one can
lightsaber.
do it. He's in the air. He does like a little cool slash, like 5 feet a
Yeah,
distance in front of him and towards the ground. Deviant
right.
Astalos, he can be standing. He sticks his head up. He gets a giant laser beam and he slams it down in front of him. And that entire distance, anything that's standing there will be hit.
Right.
Which is terrifying because it hits really hard. He also does a thing where he can. Well, there's another thing that he does in G rank that a lot of people haven't seen if they haven't played Double Cross, where he'll fly up in the air, and he does a lot of things in the air. But another thing that he can do is, and this is what the normal Astalos can do in G rank. He can stab his tail into the ground, and then he makes an area that he zaps, and it paralyzes the people in that area.
Okay.
Which is very, very annoying. But it's usually not that bad if you're using Adept and you've learned the timing. Him slamming his
Right.
tail down and then you dodging electricity. Which is
Or
actually really
blocking.
nice because he puts his tail on the ground, which is really nice to, like, fork trying to cut it. If you're able
Right.
to, iframe the attack, which I'm not sure you can. I mean, someone who's really good, and if they could do that, you'd be able to get right next to his tail and, like, just hit it with a triple charge before he gets it out of the ground. But now that we're through just the normal moves that he gains, and then that big laser move, there's a lot of other stuff. He can do... So his electricity that he shoots at you is much different. He can still do the normal zigzagging ones that slash across in front of you, which are really annoying. But he can also do a thing where he shoots these small little balls that are lightning. And they come out really slow, and then they speed up.
Okay.
So he kind of plants them in a spot, and they go really fast. After just sitting there for kind of a second, they kind of move forward slowly and then fire forward. And that sucks, because he can fire he can fire two. Actually, I think he fires... So you know where he does this little thing where he rolls his head around and then he fires two of those tall laser beams that zigzag. Well, he does that move, except he fires three of these slow, fast things. He can also do a thing where he jumps at you, but he jumps in the air and he flips forward, and with his tail he zaps at you with one of those and then lands. It's kind of a way that he makes distance from you also while attacking. It's very annoying. He can also do something that was very crazy. He can... Basically, he sends out another lightning thing that slowly falls to the ground. And then once it hits the ground, it becomes a giant orb. And it sucks you in, and you have to run away from it. Which is horrifying, because if you hit it, you take tons of damage. And at the same time, he's also attacking, and more often than not, he's going to jump in the air and then do his giant slam, where he flies through the air and then goes, and he usually does it right on you. So you're literally stuck between a rock and a hard place, except the rock is a giant laser bomb thing that just hit the ground, and the hard place is this giant wall of monster about to slam down on top of your head. It's very intimidating, especially because his attack damage output is insane, and it's very, very challenging to avoid. He's a completely different monster, which is, I think, what they were going for when they made these deviants, because they wanted them to be fully fleshed out, cool things that we would enjoy to fight, and he's very, very fun, but you get PTSD after you fight him once. I think I fought him 3 times, and I just couldn't do it. It was just so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I think...
Wow, that sounds intense.
I mean, because I was able to beat him once, but it was more like I wanted to beat all those deviants once just so I could see Massacre Demon Diablos.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not fun.
I'll eventually get there, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Honestly, Massacre is worth it. He's really, really crazy, but when he's in that mode, it's just so fun. It's scary to be fighting him. He's a completely different monster. Honestly, most of the new deviants are. It's very cool.
If I don't make it myself, I may just find a video and see how it goes.
Yeah, I hope you can make it there and see it for yourself. It's very cool.
Yeah, maybe. I got a lot of other games coming up, and Double Cross is low on the list. We're less than 100 days at this point from Monster Hunter World. It's low on the totem pole just because of it's in Japanese. It's the most unfortunate part about it, but I'm still playing here and there. Not a whole lot though. So as far as anything else Astalos does, his roar, I kind of feel like it's very when you get into that, is very electronic sounding, which kind of makes sense given his element. It's been a while since I've heard it, so I don't really have a lot of memory to go on what it exactly sounds like. But one thing I did want to get into is a little bit of the ecology of him that you see with his ecology and generations. We don't have many instances where we know that wyverns prey upon other wyverns.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few, or they fight or that kind of thing. But Astalos very clearly is trying to attack and kill other monsters in both the intro video and his ecology. And in his ecology he succeeds. But he attacks Rathalos. I think he's the one that he attacks Rathalos. The ecology sort of touches on him attacking Rathalos, and then you see not the ecology. The intro to the game touches on him attacking and trying to kill and eat Rathalos, but then you also see him kill a lot of Vespoid, which aren't other wyverns, but just sort of eating them. But then he attacks a Velocidrome and actually kills and eats that. It's not often that you see that kind of thing. So he's one of the very few that preys upon other wyverns. I think the only other one that we really see actual confirmation of him, them being predatory or at least aggressive directly so, is Soregius.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For some reason I kept thinking that wasn't his name.
Well, another one I think is the what is it? Oh, the Nersilla and Gypsaros.
Right. Unfortunately, that's another. Yeah, that is true. It's one of the very few times we see predation on wyverns. But that's. I guess that would count, but I kind of meant wyvern against wyvern.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that would be Temnosiran and wyvern.
Yes, he is a Temnosiran.
Well, he's the Temnosiran.
Giant.
I hope we get more.
Yeah, I was like, who knows?
I want to see more.
Jen
spiders,
has some
man.
potential.
I mean, I hate spiders, but like the monster spiders are cool.
Yeah. Maybe we get Akura Vishima finally.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you're not familiar with that, that's a scorpion one from Frontier.
Mm-hmm. I'd really like to see, some kind of. What if we had a snail? It's just. It's just there. It's just like a giant wall of health, and you just kind of like whack at it. It's just moving along. You have to just kill it before it makes it to the other end of the map. It's a 50-minute time limit. You better hope that you have enough damage output to kill him before then. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't attack. He just oozes along. Or maybe his trail's like acid and it just kills you or something. I don't know.
You kind of just described Leo Shun. I mean, really.
What if it was like a national race thing where you had to like kill him in the least amount of inches across the area? They'd measure it. Well, I think it'd be interesting to say your first experience with him, just because your first experience is kind of cool, trying to get the egg, Do
you want to start out, or?
So it's actually I can start out. So it's actually really cool. the first way that you really meet Astalos, just like the other Fated Four, is in a quest where you have to do something very simple and definitely not anything to do with those monsters.
I'd argue egg carrying is not simple, but
well, yeah, it's true. But like you're not expecting to go and fight a giant monster that you're not ready for. And in this, you're supposed to go and fight, or you're supposed to go grab these eggs and bring them back. And when you run into the area where the eggs are, there's a giant Astalos, which is this crazy bladed monster. It's like all sharp and it's got all these kind of spiky parts on it. And it's a little, like, it's just laying down there. It's sleeping. You're supposed to walk up there and grab an egg next to it. And when you haven't done much in that game, that is scary. That's really scary. I remember I went in there with, I think I was using the hammer or the gun lance. Might have been the gun lance. And I remember walking in, and I didn't touch it. I just grabbed an egg and I ran away. And then the second time I went back, and I said, you know what? I'm going to fight this thing. I don't know if it was still sleeping or what, but I think it was still in that area. And I fought it for a long time. In those quests, the health of the monster is much higher than normal. It's like high rank tier in a low rank quest when you have no damage coming out of your weapons. And it's very intimidating, especially because you also don't have any defense, so they wreck you completely.
Yeah.
But it was super duper fun. I remember that I cut off his tail and I broke his wings. I don't think I ever broke his head because I was too scared to get near it because everything was attacking in the front. But I did end up killing him, which was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, when they first saw him, they avoided him. But was that what you did, or did you actually try to kill him?
So my first encounter is same way the egg carrying quest that you do. I saw so at this point, I don't know if it's just because I tend to go sequentially top to bottom on the quest list, and I think that makes him the third Fated Four that you encounter if you just go top to bottom. So I already knew that this was supposed to be a please don't kill me quest, and not a please don't kill me as in like, oh, you shouldn't. It's just a harder version of the monster than it should be.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. So my interaction with him the first time was picking up the egg, booking it for the cliffs and the next area, him dropping in the area after that and making a roar, which I was thankfully was far enough away that I didn't get the earplug effect.
Yeah.
And I walked out. That was literally my first encounter with him. I had no interest in fighting him because I knew it was just going to be stupidly long and I didn't want to do it. But when I actually did first fight him, I wrecked him pretty hard with my charge blade.
Nice.
It wasn't, and he's like appropriate level at that point. I got hit a couple times, but the one that really surprised me is his drop down and slam down with his arms.
Yeah, he has a really strange timing for it because he floats down kind of slow, but then he kind of teleports to the ground really fast. It's like he's like still like 20 feet off the ground, and then he hits really hard.
So I managed to dodge it the first time without really any problems, and then I sort of understood what was going on, and then I was able to block it. So I never actually got hit by it. I was just surprised. I was like, oh wow, he's actually using his arms. Yeah. He's actually using the wings. So I was actually kind of happy to see that.
Yeah, one of my favorite moves he does is when he kind of flies back and does that. Instead of doing the big slam, he smashes his wings forward as he runs forward. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty good stuff. But yeah, I mean, really, I didn't find my first encounter with him, even fighting him, to be that memorable. I do remember it. It's just like, it's not that he's like a bad monster. It's just that, like, I don't know. It wasn't. I like him, but it didn't leave any sort of lasting impression aside from his music. I did enjoy his music.
Yeah, his music is very good.
So,
but yeah, something I wanted to mention though, just because of what I had said before about how I like to fight it with aerial. When I started out MHGen, I focused mainly on using. I didn't really use hammer at this point. I think I was still using a lot of the charge blade with guild. And then I used sword and shield because I thought that was very interesting. And I used the gun lance. And I was using the gun lance on him. But what I did was I used aerial gun lance. And for those of you that have not used aerial gun lance, it is a very, very well-rounded attack style. It's like gun lance, except it feels much more mobile because you actually do have, in some way, an advance forward. You can combo between your charge forward, where you run and then swing your lance up, or you can hop forward, which is similar to the kind of jump roll animation you get when you're using aerial with other weapons, but in this you just kind of jump forward with your I guess because it's kind of hard to roll when you're holding a gun lance.
right.
You kind of leap forward. And one of the things you can do is you can jump, you can shell a single shell in the air, and then you can slam down your gun lance. And one of the early gun lances, I can't remember which one it was that I used, it was a wide gun lance, I think. Or it was a long gun lance. So the shell was actually doing a fair amount of damage. So it was really useful because I could do a lot of damage to his wings and knock him down. And also I could block his big, huge attacks, which were terrifying. And yeah, I remember learning the timing of when he slams his wing down that I could jump off of them. And then after he slams, he kind of swings his arm up around. Like he kind of is like stretching back, like, okay, I just did that. And as he jumps and does that, you can actually get the shot off and the slam on it. And I was able to knock him down a lot, and that was one of the things that kept me safe. Also, you can, because he is similar to Rathalos and things like that, he doesn't really have many attacks that he can attack directly underneath him. Unless he leaps backwards and he slams down. So I felt very safe being able to get under him and stab at his legs until he tripped. And it was interesting because I could learn what I needed to do as I went through it. But I think overall it was a very fun fight.
Yeah, he's fun. I don't know. It didn't
grab you.
Yeah. I think Glavenus is the only fated for the... I mean, no, actually, I think Astalos is the only one that didn't. Because I do like him, but I don't know. I just think I like the other three better. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. Yeah. It's just like I think I just like the other ones better. I don't know how else to explain it.
No, it's fine. Like that's kind of how I feel about... Which is kind of weird. It's kind of a mix of how I feel between Glavenus and Mitsuzune. Because on one hand, Mitsuzune is really cool, but the actual fight's kind of boring, and Mitsuzune is really annoying to me. Especially in G rank, it's horrifying. But they made some changes to it that are really weird. But that's something we can talk about when we get to talk about that probably on another podcast. But just in general, Gammoth and Astalos are the most interesting to me. Gammoth isn't as fun to fight, but the aesthetic of it is really cool. And Astalos is just, I think, all around is very fun, very cool looking. But again, that's my opinion.
I gotcha. I guess we move on to the final question. If you given the choice, which one would you date, an Astos or a Kut-Ku?
Well, on one hand, one is smaller, and it's a weird chicken thing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the other one will could electrocute you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, don't forget, Kut-Ku could burn you.
True, he could burn me. But with love, there's always a spark, right? So I don't know how much of a spark I want, but at least there is a spark with Astalos, literally. Um, I mean, it also has the stained glass windows wings, which are really cool. I want to say it depends. Are we thinking date as in hang?
I don't know. It's the generic question that we went
I
through
know.
several times.
If it was run off to the sunset and hang out with it because you're happy together, then
Yeah.
I probably want to hang out with Kut-Ku because I know Kut-Ku can get food for itself, and I don't have to worry about buying things for it. But Astalos is so needy, it needs all those bugs that it has to eat, all those Vespoids that somehow don't oh, wait a minute. Of course I'm gonna date Astalos because she can knock all the Vespoids out of the air and they don't explode. I could make so much money. I could be a gold digger. I'll be a trophy husband, trophy hunter.
Trophy hunter.
Yeah. There we go.
Whole new meaning to trophy hunter.
Oh my goodness.
Aside from the PSN stuff.
Wow, I was not expecting to get to this point when we started talking about this, but yeah, Astalos 100% now.
Okay. I think that given Kut-Ku and I's history, I would be tempted to say Kut-Ku, but Kut-Ku is entirely unreliable, and you cannot trust him. And he's just a goofball, and he's just going to get himself and everyone hurt. So I'm going to say Astalos.
Well, maybe there's another side of this. Which one would you rather have in battle? Because if you think about it, Astalos is going to take you out and everyone. Because he is so, if it was the deviant Astalos, he would just kill everybody. It wouldn't even matter. He just hits everything.
Well, I think really the thing there would just be to wear the Gypsos armor. Then you'd be fine.
Very true. Yeah.
Why
doesn't Gypsos armor just negate electricity attacks? I mean, come on.
That
would be the meta.
Yeah. I think that's why, though. It would just be a little too powerful.
If you're fighting Kieran, oh my goodness, that'd be so easy.
I mean, granted, you still take physical damage from the monsters.
Yeah, but would you take damage from the lightning? I mean, I guess we have something going on.
Yeah.
I mean, we can walk in a shock trap and not care.
Right. Well, I mean, we can already do that, but
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about it for me. It was pretty just I don't think Kut-Ku is reliable. So.
Yeah, because it's hey, go get groceries, and then I don't know. It could just get its head stuck in the ground somewhere. Then again, I'm not sure Astalos would go get groceries anyway, and also they're both animals and probably don't think about what groceries are. Probably don't know what groceries are, so this is kind of a useless question.
It's just supposed to be funny.
I'm overthinking this.
Yeah, maybe a little.
A little bit.
Okay, so I think that about wraps us up. So
okay, yeah.
Thank you, hunters, for joining us on the Hunter's Hub. And remember, we'll see you next quest.
Make sure you get those Banabra shells. Wait, isn't it the wings? Wait, which one? What's the rare one? What's the rare one?
They're both kind of rare.
Okay, and also the wings. Woo!
Thank you for joining us today, hunters. You can catch our latest episodes on SoundCloud, and everything else you can catch on Reddit, Google Drive Download, and YouTube.